Hi, Richie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone. So today we're recording a pre-intro to episode 26 of What, Where, Why, Enemies of Bloodborne, The Crawlers.
Sin, what is it about this occasion that merits a pre-intro?
Well, while we were recording The Crawlers, you mentioned that the Crawlers were the first thing you talked about in your original channel
Yeah,
about 5 years ago.
yeah. Was the first thing I recorded. I don't think they were the first thing in the video, but I can't be bothered going back and checking.
So I thought this podcast could serve as a good comparison of your journey through your Bloodborne life, and people could see your transformation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Who knows what other transformations will be occurring? Stay tuned to find out.
Life is full of change, right?
Yeah.
If there was no change, we would have never met.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about that.
Yeah, if I hadn't recorded that thing on Crawlers 5 years ago, would not be here now.
So it's a good comparison. And I think what I'll do is I'll link your original crawler thing
Yeah.
in the comments, in the description, whatever.
Unlisted. I'm not finding it for you.
Okay, I'll find it.
It's on a playlist somewhere. Just, God, let it die.
Okay. But for the purposes of this educational podcast, people can compare the then and the now.
There's a definite evolution.
There is.
I'm going to continue transitioning into something better.
Okay, that's good. It's a positive outlook on life.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And on a side note, our 3-year anniversary is coming up soon.
It is. In almost exactly 2 months is the anniversary of the first Discord message you sent me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll gotta do something special for that as well.
All right.
Okay. Well, that's it. Enjoy the podcast, everyone. Unlike the usual patron trash, this one was actually pretty okay.
I don't remember it.
Thank you.
At all. Ready.
Hi, Richie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone. Richie, what was that noise in the beginning?
I was talking to you and you hit record during it, so you heard the We've been talking for about half an hour. We just hadn't hit record yet.
So today on What, Where, Why, episode 26, Enemies of Bloodborne, we're gonna talk about the Crawlers, suggested by Simone and Sam.
Yay!
So Richie, tell me, what are the Richie, tell me, what are the Crawlers?
Crawlers are like one of the things that is hardest to describe because it doesn't look like it's so lacking in any sort of real world analog. It's a bit like a slug and a bit like an octopus if you combine them.
Slugtopus.
Slugtopus. There you go. It's a slugtopus. It's like the body shape of a slug, like a long slithering thing, but off to the side of its body are a whole lot of tentacles. That's the basic shape of it. Weirdly, the back of it seems to be like just a giant pile of guts that it's dragging around. It almost looks like there's sort of this pile of guts and then this slug thing is attached to the top of it. And then it has what looks, it might be the mouth. It just has a sort of orifice at one end of it that we're taking to be its mouth because that's like, that appears to be the head of the thing because that's the part that faces you when it moves toward you. And the most notable feature of it, probably, is that its stomach is, we're just calling it a stomach, we don't know what it is. Its abdomen is basically cut in half from top to like midway down. And it's this big, like, it looks like red sort of raw flesh is under it.
Yeah, it's very
And
gross.
yeah, and the main means by which it will try to attack you is it rears up on its back, and out of the big wound, a bunch of messengers will appear and start like reaching for you. And when they do that, this huge cloud of gas comes out that inflicts rapid poison.
Hmm.
So they're a very, very strange creature. They're the probably the most like you would call them Lovecraftian out of all the things you meet that aren't just straight up great ones.
Hmm.
Because even you think about like the Celestials, they're just like little goofy aliens, and the Garden of Eyes is just like, okay, it's a person that's like a spider mutant. But this thing, it's actually quite hard to describe what it is at all. It's just like when you see them, it's hard to even make out what they are. They're just like a mass of tentacles and spikes and things that just sort of like squidging around in a swamp.
Hmm. And in the past, you've mentioned that the Nightmare Frontier, where we find them, is actually remnants of Lauren.
Oh, Sin. Oh, why don't you bring that up again? I'm so sick of talking about it. Yeah, see what it's like when you've got a point to make and you're like, well, it reminds me of this. Oh, we've talked about it. Oh, heard it.
Thank you, Sinclair Moore.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and you also mentioned that the Soul God, the Silver Piece, and the gods, and all those guys are also from Lauren.
Yeah, but when you say, like, I also mentioned this like 24 fucking hours ago and you started getting mad at me.
I know, that's why I'm a little hesitant.
Yeah, it's not like, well, that was a long time ago. I don't still feel like that. It was yesterday.
I'm trying to slip it in so you don't go, oh, again, Sin. You see what it feels like? You see what it feels like when you can't talk? Um, so all those people are from Lauren, and the Nightmare Frontier is a remnant of Lauren. So does it mean that the crawlers are also from Lauren?
We think, yeah.
And are they like inhabitants of Lauren?
Okay, this is where it gets kind of tricky, right?
Uh huh.
Because when the before there was a DLC, you could be like, "Oh, okay, I guess they're just from Lauren. That was what the kin were like in Lauren. This is their equivalent of like Celestials or whatever. They were messing around and they made these things."
Hmm.
But then the DLC came out, and the DLC did kind of two things to our understanding of the crawlers. The first thing is it kind of clarified that winter lanterns are something that was like created by what Maria did.
Hmm.
Because they start sticking winter lanterns in and around places Maria has been in that well, right?
Hmm.
So they kind of clarify, okay, winter lanterns, what happened was when Maria, whatever she did, when she like cast away her old self or when she did the thing that traumatized her or whatever, the winter lanterns were sort of born from that. That changed our understanding because prior to that, you could be like, okay, a winter lantern, like they might just be a thing that has like somehow appeared here, or like they were copies of the doll that came to life or something. There were all these different ideas about what they were, but now it's clear no, what Maria did spontaneously created these things. That also suggests, okay, well, hang on, the crawlers look a lot like Cos. And the way that they hurt you is that they expose their abdomen that has been cut open, like Cos's was cut open. And inside of that are these struggling messengers that look a lot like children.
Mhm.
So it recasts what you've just seen as, oh wait, this is like a miniature version of Cos that's been like it's been cut open and inside there's the children in the same way that Cos was gutted and the orphan was inside her. So then and when you encounter them, they're all of them are in the swamps. They're like a semi-aquatic thing that's like wriggling around in the swamp. So it's like, all right, is this actually when Cos was killed? Did that create these?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, were these ever like a naturally occurring thing, or did yeah? Was this created from Cos? The other um explanation, which kind of fits with the DLC as well, is that this is like some future form of the snail women from the Hamlet. Because the snail women, they have the same color to them, they have the same basic body shape, but obviously more humanoid. And like I talked about this before, but the crawler looks like it's almost two things joined together. It looks like it's something that crawled up and over like the body of something else. And if you look at the snail women, they have these tentacle things that are growing up over them. And it also fits in with like how milkweed works, because when you use the milkweed rune, it makes the thing like it starts to grow over you. You don't actually just straight up turn into this thing. You can see that there's actually a point on the base of your neck where these things like growing and covering your body.
Mhm.
So yeah. Um that's the main thing about the crawler, is that like this is just a giant question mark over it could be any number of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And could it be, I think it's unlikely, but could it be that in Lauren there were just these, I guess, creatures, maybe humans who turned into these creatures, or maybe it's just part of the, like, I guess, fauna, or what do you call it?
Fauna, yeah.
Fauna, yeah, of,
Yeah.
Lauren, where they just
Yeah.
have these crawlers.
Yeah, that's possible, cuz like although it's are they kin? No, they're not kin. Okay.
What if they're
So
like
yeah.
some sort of like, oh, go on, yeah, yeah, go on,
Oh,
sorry,
I was
go
going to
on.
say that are they kin, but they're not kin. So that suggests that they are just like a weird monster.
Like not even a monster, maybe they're like pets or something, like you know how you have a goldfish, like maybe they're like,
Well, no, they're like phantasms because they're obsessed with like slugs and stuff.
okay, so it's like how you had a bunch of slugs in your
Yeah.
aquarium,
Yeah.
maybe people would have a bunch of crawlers in their swamps.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay, cool.
Because there's big ones and little ones, which suggests that like they are like they're growing, and you meet them in groups, and it's like, is this like a family unit?
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you, Richie. And where are the crawlers?
They're in the Nightmare Frontier. That's it.
And that's
They're only in
it.
one place. They're in one place. They're only in the.
Let's think about this. Are you thinking?
Yes, I am. They're only in the Nightmare Frontier.
Damn. What about statues? Are there statues of them somewhere else in the game?
There's statues that have the same like shape as them, sort of,
Where?
but that could in like Bergenworth and stuff. But that could like there's statues that have. Hang on, I'll send you. Um, there's statues that have like this basic body shape to them, where it's like a that sort of hunched, sort of kind of humanoid, but also elongated and maybe not having any bones look to it. There's a bunch of statues that are like that, but they could also be like Ebrietas.
I find the artwork, what you just showed me, really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I actually like this better than what we get in game, to be honest.
Isn't it the same thing?
No,
No.
no.
Hmm.
Like here, it looks like they could just walk upright, you know? In the game, they're mostly like crawling and then hitting you and then just like spewing stuff at you, and you're like, oh, but here they seem more like more chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're in the Nightmare Frontier. There's actually not that many of them. There's three
So,
kind of
but the
clusters.
statues. Sorry, the statues you said are in Bergenworth.
Well, there's statues that have that shape to them, and I think it's actually meant to be a crawler.
You don't think it's meant to be a crawler?
But we've talked about this before. But a lot of the statues of the great ones, none of them ever actually straightforwardly match. They're always like bits and pieces of a great one. So like, there's the statues and it's amygdala, but it's got like the body of a lion, or it's like kind of looks like a celestial, but it's shorter and fatter, and it like its fingers are tentacles and things. Because the idea is like presumably, I think this is something that they got from Call of Cthulhu, but presumably the idea is that people just get snatches and visions of these things, like they sense the presence of amygdala, but they don't have a clear look at what amygdala actually is, and their brain is like filling in the blanks with like this sort of hallucination thing. So they draw amygdala as something very strange. And there's the ones like these other amygdala statues that are in Forbidden Woods, but they're like way more humanoid. There's the amygdala statues by the church, like the Grand Cathedral, but they're like, again, they're more humanoid and they're holding a spear, which they don't do. And pretty much just the big amygdala statue in Yahagol is like the only accurate one you see.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is like, it's more like evocative of what they are. Like, I'll send you, hang on, like these. Like, there's nothing that actually looks like that in the game. But it's getting at the idea of like, okay, humanoid, but also a lot of like mollusk anatomy, and it looks aquatic and stuff like that.
That's actually a good point. I'm looking at it, and it looks like it looks like it's like a turtle shell or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it looks like something that could be in the
yeah.
fishing hamlet.
Yeah, but the thing is, it looks like it, but it isn't. And like
It
the
is,
ones I
yeah.
just
So
showed you
you
then,
know
like
what? You're
that's
just yeah. You just gave me an idea, Richie.
uh-huh.
We'll definitely have to do statues of Bloodborne because this is very
All right,
interesting.
okay. And there's you can see there's like that. You can imagine a celestial as kind of like that. It's like a little short, sort of fat
Mm-hmm.
humanoid,
Mm-hmm.
but its body is seemingly composed entirely of tentacles. All these flowing designs all over it that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the ones in Dignity City that look like. So you can see that like
Yeah.
the statues, they're kind of evocative of the shape of a crawler, but they're not a crawler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And why are the crawlers?
I think we covered that accidentally because we were like,
Um,
oh yeah,
could you please
what?
repeat it?
Prior to DLC, weird slug thing in lore, and after DLC might be manifestation of causes trauma.
Thank you. And I guess that's it. Could you please do the outro?
That was What, Where, Why, Enemies of Bloodborne, episode 26. We're over the quarter century mark. Episode 26, The Crawler.
And could you quickly sum up what we learned today?
Uh, there's. I didn't say where the crawlers were properly because we talked about the statues.
You said they're in the
Okay,
frontier, and I was like, where else? Frontier, 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 frontier,
okay.
frontier.
I need.
And
Shut
I
up.
actually did want to ask you about the swamp and the exact location, but then I was like, okay, frontier. Go on.
Okay, we'll talk about some of the location then.
Okay.
Um, so there's three kind of clusters of crawlers. First one is in the big swamp that you see on your way to like the second half of the frontier. And they're all together in a big clump. There's big ones and little ones, which makes it seem like there's a family of them. Keep going through. There's another one. There's another like cluster of them in the swamp before Amygdala's chamber, which makes it seem like they're supposed to be like aquatic or amphibious or whatever creatures. But then there's a bunch that are on land that are clustered around a dead body.
Mhm.
So I guess that person must have just aggroed them and they followed them and ate them. The other thing about crawlers is that they drop different kinds of cold blood.
Mhm.
So that's sort of rare for enemies to do, for it to actually drop cold blood. So that sort of says something about them, and the rapid poison attack, all the rapid poison attacks in the game are somehow connected to blood. So there's something about crawlers that they're full of blood, or they're made from blood, or something like that.
Mhm.
Because I actually don't think anything else in the game drops cold blood randomly. It's a detail they've specifically added.
Mhm.
Yeah. They're also basically immune to poison. Not completely, but basically. They have very, very high poison resistance.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
So why?
Well, because the poison in the game is almost always connected to blood. The one time I think you can say it's explicitly not a blood thing is the Hintertombs swamps, because that is just a swamp. Whereas the Nightmare Frontier swamp, the whole of the frontier, if you look at it, seems like it's actually blood that is forming into shapes in the sky. It's almost like it's grown out of a giant mass of blood. So the swamp in the frontier, it's probably actually just blood that's formed into a swamp. Mm.
Okay.
And I guess the scorpions in the labyrinth are it's poison, but for all we know, the scorpions are full of blood, and that's what makes them poisonous.
It's very interesting. Thank you. And do you think they like it in the swamp?
They seem to be enjoying themselves before we arrive.
Yeah, so it's not like they're like, ouch, it's a swamp. They're like, oh, I love this swamp. This is like a jacuzzi.
Well, yeah, otherwise they'd die because the swamp's poisonous.
But they're resistant to poison.
That's what I mean. If they weren't resistant to poison, they wouldn't like the swamp.
No, maybe they're like, I hate this swamp. I want to die, but they're resistant to poison, so they don't. So it's like eternal torture.
The tragedy of the crawlers. Just make sure you call it a fitting end. The crawlers try to kill themselves by throwing themselves in a poisonous swamp. But the poison cannot kill them, so they are destined to suffer eternally. A fitting end.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to verbalize, and you put it in words so beautifully.
But just like every other fucking Dark Souls thing, it's like, let's listen to the grim tale of this knight who died, and it was sad. Sad violin music.mp3 enter. And then you're just like, hi, Rishi! Let's talk about the fucking physical manifestation of an act of infanticide today.
Oh my god. Thank you, Richie. Do the outro.
That was What Where Why, episode 26, The Crawler.
Woo!
I don't know, there's nothing funny to say. I think we covered everything. That was surprisingly...
It was, yeah, we're getting better.
Because I've had 5 years. Because this is the first thing I ever fucking talked about in Bloodborne was crawlers. So
Oh my
I
God,
have had five years to get my thoughts in order about what this enemy that's in one location everyone runs by actually is.
Are you happy with how this episode turned out?
It's giving me a lot of time to reflect on my life and what has changed.
Thank you, Richie. And thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye!
Bye!